accolade. Hey folks, I'm Andy from Alba Matter, and welcome to Talk Matters, the first of hopefully many interviews with some of the best and brightest talents in Scottish football. Our first interview is with Manchester City and Scotland midfielder Caroline Weir. Caroline is one of the leading stars of the Women's Super League, having won numerous individual accolades such as Player of the Years for club and country, the FA Cup twice, and the League Cup. She's played in Euros, she's played in World Cups, and she's still only 24. Just. We were interested in the mindset behind the excellence, glimpsing the humility and dedication of the person behind the stats. During the interview, we talked of all manner of things, from beating sexism in a boys' team to overcoming loneliness at Arsenal, from gaining the 1% that goes into scoring screamers in Manchester derbies, to turning a certain youth leader inside out on Scottish Island holidays. She may be a superstar, relentlessly pursuing improvement, but she is also one of the most insightful footballers I've heard in articulating her game. What she says matters, and that's no surprise to us. Talk matters, and Caroline Weir does it better than most. Enjoy. Caroline, welcome to Alba Matter. You are our first guest and we're delighted to have you. We have been fans of yours for a long time. We've been following your career. So, yes, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
The first thing we wanted to say was happy birthday in advance. So, it's 20th of June, is that right?
That's right, yeah. I'm taking the birthday week. So, I'm going to try and milk my birthday for as long as possible. Obviously, we're in lockdown, so I think that's fair enough. But yeah, my actual birthday's in a few days. But yeah, you're first to wish me it, so thank you.
Oh, very good. Oh, that's a claim to fame. So, starting out, just to let people know, we actually know each other, don't we? But yeah, the last time I saw you was a wee while ago.
It was, yeah. It doesn't feel like that long ago, actually, but it was in Arran, wasn't it? On summer, we used to go there for our summer holidays.
Yeah,
Um,
and the kids club
and
there.
Yeah, and you were one of the leaders, weren't you, of the kids club? So we played a lot of games against each other, I think, on White and Bay.
I think you embarrassed me. You embarrassed me one too many times in that White and Bay pitch, along with everyone else though. So that I was in good company there. So my first question was going to be, what have you been up to the last 15 years? But I think I just wanted to start at Elgin Star and ask you about your experiences there. You started playing for them at 5. They were a local boys club.
Yep, that's right. Yeah. Well, it's going back now. It's 20 years, which is kind of crazy, and I feel like it doesn't feel like it's gone pretty fast. But yeah, 5 years is when I started playing with the boys. I started playing before that in my back garden with my siblings, and joined the boys team because at the time that was all that was available to me, and I wanted to be playing, in a kind of a competitive more competitive environment. And yeah, that was the boys team. I had all the guys in my primary class played for the same team, and the parents knew each other, so it was quite a friendly team. And yeah, I played there for 5 years with the boys and loved it. I think it was actually a really important time. Obviously, not thinking at the time because I was, 6-year-old girl, not caring about anything.
Yeah, how so? What made it so important?
I think just without realizing it kind of, from that moment, I felt I always had a point to prove because not that I really realised it at the time, but looking back, there was obviously the odd comment, sexist comment that came from a parent. Not usually the boys because they didn't care, but I was the only girl playing in that team, in that league. So I obviously stood out for that reason. And
is that right, in the whole league?
Yeah, and I think maybe as I got to like 9, 10, there was maybe a few girls, or maybe the one girls team came about. I don't know, don't really remember, but I just remember it being all boys, and I didn't care about it. The boys in my team definitely didn't care, and the boys they played against, but it was the parents. I think my dad probably heard a few more comments that they shouldn't have a girl playing, or you'll beat them because they've got a girl playing. So yeah, I always thought, I've got a point to prove. Just because I'm a girl doesn't mean I'm not good enough to be here. And I think I've kind of carried that on with me. Even being in a girls, about that competitive edge was probably instilled in me from quite a young age.
Yeah, that fight. That's wonderful. It must have been quite difficult to hear your dad hearing those things, if you know what I mean. Were you aware of it as a 5-year-old kid, or were you oblivious, like happily so?
I think I was aware that I was always the only girl there, whether that was
Hmm.
playing for the boys on a Saturday morning or whether it was primary school competitions. I was always, we'd go to school competitions and it would be literally hundreds of boys playing, and I
Hmm.
would be the only girl. And I think as I maybe got a bit older, I was a bit more conscious and maybe self conscious about it. And when
Hmm.
you get to that age, especially, 11, 12, about to hit teenage years, I wasn't embarrassed, but I didn't always feel the most comfortable. And that's obviously when I moved into the girls' setup. But yeah, I was definitely aware of it. And I think it probably did make me, always want to prove a point.
Sure. I bet you embarrassed a few more boys along the way. So I was definitely in good company. But I know that you mentioned your dad there, and your dad became really involved as you moved on to Hibs. You and your sister, is that right? And
Yeah.
he kind of became involved in developing a pathway for Hibs, but for you and your sister as well.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a hero there. That is, were you aware of that at the time, or did you just feel more comfortable in Hibs? Did it feel like you were moving? It was a good move.
Yeah, it was definitely a necessary move for me at the time. I
Hmm.
remember at the about the age of 10 speaking to my dad, I think in the car on the way home from boys training, thinking, Dad, I played here for 5 years. What's the next move? Where am
Hmm.
I going to move up again? And am I going to play for an older age group, etc. And I think my dad was a bit like Caroline, relax. Like, you're only 10. What are you saying here? But yeah, then I moved to Hibs and played for the under 13s, and I think probably through under 30s, maybe under 15s, I was just going with it. And I think so was my sister, so was my dad. We didn't really know what the end goal was or what the pathway was. But then as my
Hmm.
dad got involved and wanted to make it more of a link between the 13s and the first team, because when I first joined, I didn't even know what the first team was or who they were or when they played and what league, whatever. So there wasn't that kind of maybe role model kind of thing, which obviously my dad and along with a lot of volunteers kind of worked hard to make to make it a thing for us girls coming through the ranks, really. And by the time I was probably 16, 15, 16, I was training with the first team. We were all in the same training complex. And yeah, it just, I think it definitely encouraged me to reach a certain level at Hibs and get into that first team and know that was where I wanted to be from quite a young age. Like I say, like probably 14, 15. And my dad was, yeah, he was quite
Yeah.
influential in that way.
Fantastic. So you've mentioned a couple of times that you had a real aspiration at a young age. So you were wanting to be more competitive at 5. You wanted to move on as a 10-year-old and say, Dad, what's next? What's going on? I know also that you're, and I must say this, and I'm not saying this to butter you up for any means, but on that pitch in Arran, is when I kind of knew you, and you were about that age, about 10, 11. I remember, you and your siblings, you were all, you had an incredible ability with sport and also a fierce competitiveness, quietly so, but a real drive and a real competitiveness. So when I say you were embarrassing folk, it was more your quality on the ball, and at that age, just it didn't matter that you were a girl or a boy, whatever. It was just that you were clearly so much better than other folk. Is that something you were aware of as a kid? Because it's evident now, obviously, as a professional footballer.
I don't think so. I think it's funny you say we were quietly competitive, but that was just in public because the amount of argument we used to have in the back garden, honestly, we used to
Well,
fall out
there
all
was
the time.
a board in the back garden or something. Is that right? That you used to go and kick against, and yeah.
That's right. We would Rob, my brother, would play in goals. He went through a goalkeeper stage, which was great for me because I could just hit shots at him all day. And yeah, we would honestly argue for hours in the back garden about just someone cheated or that was out or whatever. And that is definitely part of where we're all competitive in our kind of different fields now that we've ended up in. And it definitely stemmed from those times in the back garden and going on holiday to Arran and playing these kind of games. Um, so yeah, I think that definitely was had a big impact growing up, and that's maybe
Yeah.
why we're the way we are now. But yeah, I don't know if I was aware. Yeah, no, I don't think so because I think my parents are very kind of humble people, and
Hmm.
their emphasis was always on hard work and not so much if you're talented or not. It was more hard work, and I don't think I feel that. Definitely is what drives me now. I don't feel that, you know, I'm better than anyone. You know, I definitely didn't feel like that growing up, and I think that's you can't really feel like that until maybe you've reached a certain goal that you want to achieve or a certain level, and I still don't feel like that. There's still so many things I want to improve on and go on to win, and I think as soon as you start thinking that, people are going to catch you up, and you've just constantly got to keep growing and have that mindset of, you know, what's next. Don't stand still. That was my biggest thing, was standing still and not feeling like I was improving. And I think that's why at the age of 10 I asked my dad what was next, because even then I thought, you know, I need to keep improving, I need to get to this level and this level. So I've always had that. Like I say, I have that now, and there's many things I want to go on and achieve, hopefully.
So coming on to the things you want to achieve, I was listening to you speaking in Behind the Goal to your friends and colleagues like Leanne Crichton and Rachel Corsey, and you were saying how the Champions League is a real goal for you. Is that kind of the next goal for you? Because I guess we'll come back around and we'll look at your time at Bristol, where you took a really brave move there that worked out, you know, tremendously well. But I guess is the Champions League something that you feel is the next step for you in this Man City team?
Yeah, definitely. It's something, being at a club like Man City, the expectation is that you go far in the Champions League, and the last 2 seasons have been disappointments for us. We've not got far. I think it was actually maybe the first round 2 years ago, the second round this year, both to losing to Atletico Madrid. Yeah, so the expectation at City, and that's, I'm in a fortunate position to be at a club like that, and it's where I want to be, is to compete for trophies. And of course the Champions League at domestic level, that's the one you want to win.
That's the goal. Yeah
100%. So something we're working towards every day. And now that you know, we're not obviously in it at the moment, and I think it's going to be played maybe in August for this season, but it's something that we work towards and set out as a goal of ours. So yeah, of course, on a personal level, I would love to win the Champions League. I think any player would. It's easier said than done, and you need to be in a good team and all these things. But it's definitely on the list.
You mentioned motivation there, and having goals is something that's always driven you, from being in the car when you're 10 to moving through. Hibs, you did very well at Hibs. I think the recorded appearances there, 40 appearances, 21 goals. How would you have described yourself as a player?
Well, it's funny because at Hibs I didn't actually win anything in the first team. I loved my time at Hibs. I broke into the first team quite early on, but got through a few semi-finals, but didn't actually win anything. And I think from then on, I would say I loved my time there, and it was a huge part of my development, being first team football and then making the move down south. But yeah, as much as I enjoyed it, I didn't actually win anything. And I think from then I was like, you know, I played every game and all that, but what have I got to show for it, kind of thing. And I think that's urged me on. I've been fortunate to play at big teams and win a few trophies. But that's what you've got to go for, and that's what you've constantly got to strive. And I kind of have a feeling now that being at City, there's a different kind of mindset when you're in a team that wins things, or a team that is used to winning things. Just a bit of an edge to the team and the team environment.
Tell us a wee bit about that then, because us onlookers, we're not playing in World Cups and European Championships and Champions League. So what is that edge you're talking about? How does that get sharpened?
I think moving to City, that's definitely something I've developed. It's just that it's consistency of wanting to improve and the little things. It all sounds quite cliche, and I'm sure you've read it in many books and things, but actually living it is all true. You know, the little 1%, the professionalism, whether that's at training, away from training, and just being ruthless. Like I think at City, we're good at just, you know, we follow a process quite well, and we don't get too emotional about things in games. And I think that was what Nick, our old manager, definitely taught me well to do. You know, if you're on paper the better player, the better team, you know, then you should kind of be successful. But obviously it's not as simple as that, but that's what you should constantly just kind of go back to. And if you follow a process, then of course football is not as simple as that, and you can have your off days and things can, you know, things might not always work out like that. But yeah, just to keep knowing kind of your strengths and keep it balanced, but as well just having a competitive, ruthless edge. It's kind of hard to explain, but I do
Yeah.
feel like we have that at City.
Fantastic, because I know when just in the move, I mean, your season at Liverpool was fantastic. You won Player of the Year in your first season there, and that was before the restructuring of the league and things. You had a season at Liverpool and moved to City. And I read that you were very impressed by the setup at City from the outset. Is that something that you've only been more impressed by as you've been there? That kind of approach to winning and commitment to professionalism?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, it's the best environment I've been in. If you want to reach your potential or work towards your potential, everything is kind of in place.
Mm.
You know, the professional staff, whether it's nutrition, strength and conditioning, it's all kind of there, and it's up to you whether you kind of what you take from that. If you want to seek advice or whatever it is, it's all there. And yeah, for me, it was like if I work hard, then this can really help me get to a certain level, and
Mhm.
so that's why obviously I enjoy City, and I'm happy to be there. So yeah, as a
Fantastic.
professional athlete, no matter female, male, it doesn't matter. It's a great environment to be in.
And I'm not sure if you get sick of talking about it. We don't get sick of watching it, but that goal. I mean, do you ever score a bad goal, Caroline? Would be my first question. But you tend to score long range thunderbolts with the goal against Spain, maybe with a bit of an exception there.
Oh
Um,
God, yeah.
we were jumping about the room, don't worry about that. Every goal counts. But yeah, that goal against Man United, what was that like? Have you ever hit a ball as cleanly as that, do you think? Is it arrowed into the top corner?
Do you know, it is definitely up there with one of my best goals in terms of the kind of technique of it. But yeah, no, it was a great moment. It's weird because I don't really remember too much of the actual moment. I think
Mm.
I remember the day. It was a great day and all that kind of thing. And people do ask me a lot about that goal, and I still don't really have a great answer for it.
Did you feel it was instinctive? Was it just something that came to you, or was that a result of all the hard work that you're talking about, that 1%?
I think that's where the 1% maybe make the difference in a kind of pressurized environment. Because I think in
Mm.
training, you can practice these things, but you've really it's where it matters. In games, that's where it really matters. And I hit shots like that, every day in training, and they don't go in like that every time. So it's about practice, and obviously in the moment being the best kind of physical place you can be, mental, etc., etc. That literally goes into one moment. Football, this is what I've learned as well. Football is literally made up of moments,
Yeah.
and yeah, for me that was obviously a really positive one.
You've had quite a few moments. I mean, I was looking over the stats. I don't know if you ever, obviously, you'll have access to all of these at Man City, of course you will. Is that something with that humility and that drive that you have to always improve? Do you look at stats, or do you kind of feel the ball more and have that kind of how does that work? How does stats and the physical stuff complement one another?
Yeah, I think people, especially nowadays, can get quite hung up on stats, if it's
Yeah.
physical. I think there's definitely a place for them. But for me, fitness stats and things like that. But for me, you can lift as much as you want in the gym and things like that. And for me, that's never been a huge strength of mine. I've always been more technical and love to be on the pitch with the ball.
Hmm.
I'm never going to be lifting the most in the gym, but it has its importance. And I think for me, how I feel is the most important thing. If I've had a good week of training on the pitch and I'm going into a game and feeling sharp on the ball, that's kind of the most important for me. However, I do think stats can back you up in that way if
Hmm.
you've in games, if you've successful passes, etc., and can
Sure.
actually, I think as well, recently stats have helped me see how actually impactful I've been in games where I think I've maybe played well or not, and that can be backed up by stats. And well, actually, did you play well? How many passes forward did you play and things like that? So
Sure.
that is when stats have helped, and also fitness. Going into pre-season, especially now after this kind of period we've had,
Hmm.
going in and having markers. That's also what City have kind of helped me with, because physically I feel, especially before all this stuff with the virus, felt in a really good place
Hmm.
physically, and
Hmm.
it's just that's where the small improvements help. So having those stats in that way is also
Hmm.
important. But I feel like there's a limit to how many stats you kind of take in as well.
Sure, stats don't win games, I suppose would be
Well,
what
this
you
is
would.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's definitely it.
It's really interesting just looking at your stats over the last couple of seasons because what they say to me is that your game's kind of changed a wee bit. I'm wondering if you know out of the whole league where you ranked for tackles won this season.
Do you know, I have seen this somewhere. I think I'm in the top like 5 or something.
You're joint first. Yeah.
Oh,
For
right.
tackles one. Was that a stat, sometimes you say that they can surprise you or they can help you to get a kind of barometer if you've come off the pitch and you're not quite sure? That really surprised me as an onlooker because I don't see you as that kind of player in inverted commas. When I look at the people who you share that with, there's Jade Bailey at Liverpool, Adrian Jordan at Birmingham, Aileen Whelan at Brighton. You came to City described on our website as a bit of a forward. Is it something you've worked on is what I mean?
I think that's probably like a combination of things. Like that is a bit of a surprise to me because I wouldn't describe myself as like a tackler or that kind of player. But with the role maybe I've been playing this season, a bit of a deeper role in midfield, that maybe explains that. And just it's a combination of being fitter, covering more ground, tactically being more aware, which are all things that I've been working on the last few years. Kind of that's maybe the result of those things.
Sure.
But yeah, it's still a bit of a surprise one.
Caroline, we're right in the midst of National Loneliness Week. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. And you had mentioned, as a young girl moving down to Arsenal, kind of feeling quite alone at times in London. Sometimes the onlooker, we can think that footballers are superhuman and maybe don't experience these same things. I was just wondering how you did experience that as a young woman moving down to Arsenal.
Yeah, it was quite a difficult adjustment, I'd say, for me, because coming from a big family, yeah, there was always people about, if it's siblings, mum and dad, whatever, and coming from a small town in Scotland where everyone knew everyone, it was very friendly, and moving to just north of London was a huge change. And yeah, it taught me kind of how to be by myself and learn to kind of deal with that. It wasn't the most, I like being around people, so I didn't love it. However, I was quite young at the time, and I do think it made me grow up a little bit quicker and become a little bit more resilient as well. So as much as at times I didn't love being by myself, it did teach me a lot, and I wouldn't have changed any of it because yeah, it was just a challenge that I had to kind of overcome, and I did, and yeah, I've kind of not looked back since.
And then of course you moved to Bristol. You stayed there for a brief period before moving on to Liverpool. Bristol was a really kind of brave move looking from the outset, but I think I've heard you say before your dad had been quite involved in helping you. We've covered it already, but then you started to make your own decisions, and you've outlined it there. You overcame it and you decided to make a decision. Was moving to Bristol the kind of start of that for you, of just going, right, I'm going to take the bull by the horns and I'm going to go and progress somewhere else at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. I think that was the first probably big decision I had to make, because the one from Hibs to Arsenal, it was quite an obvious one. I was probably always going to make that move, but this one, yeah, I could have stayed at Arsenal or stayed a little bit longer or whatever, maybe waited a little bit. But no, I decided that I was ready to move, and I wanted to move. I wanted the change. I wanted a different kind of challenge, and really I just wanted to be playing every week.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as much as I love training at Arsenal and playing with these great players, I really did. I wasn't playing as much as I wanted to. So yeah, I took that step, and it was fully my decision, and moved to Bristol. And what helped, I think, was Willie Kirk, who came in as manager at Bristol at the same time. He wanted to sign me. I wanted to go, so it kind of made sense in that.
He was a real fan of yours, Willie Kirk, I read, and he knew your game inside out, it seemed.
Yeah, definitely. He had seen me since, so he was obviously my coach at Hibs, and he'd seen me since I was about 14, kind of make my way through Hibs. So he knew what I was all about. I obviously knew how he worked, and I was confident that I would get a decent amount of game time. But yeah, Bristol were kind of struggling at the time in the league, and so it was going from a big club like Arsenal to a team that was at the bottom of the league. It was a bit of a maybe surprising move from the outside, but it made total sense to me, and yeah, obviously paid off.
There seems to be an inner belief, like an inner drive that you constantly want to progress. You've mentioned progression quite a lot, and that this is why I did that. It just seems quite okay. I'm going to make this decision and I'm going to go for it. That kind of inner drive and mentality, I guess, moving on to Scotland now. What an incredible team you're part of there. Congratulations for being the first to qualify for the Euros, first women's team to qualify for the Euros, first women's team to qualify for the World Cup, and the first Scotland team in a long time. So we were absolutely over the moon to watch you in these tournaments. What's it like to play in a huge tournament? I mean, it must just be the stuff you were dreaming of, having shots against Robert in the back garden.
Yeah, no, literally, it's both tournaments were huge for Scotland, for the women's team, but just Scottish football. I think we put each time we qualify, we put women's football on the map in Scotland even more, and I think that's a hugely important thing that we feel anyway, constantly kind of driving the team forward and getting people to maybe change their way of thinking and think of women's football in Scotland. So yeah, the best way to do that is obviously to be successful on the pitch. And yeah, the Euros obviously now 3 years ago, but the World Cup last year, that was literally a dream come true, like you say, in the back garden in a Scotland kit, playing against my brother when we were whatever ages. It's what you dream of, boy, girl, if you're into football, that's what you want to do. And yeah, last year was hugely proud moment for me, and I know the rest of the team and all their families as well, and even people watching in Scotland. So it was huge. It was a bit of a whirlwind, and you want to enjoy it as much as possible during the time, which is kind of easier said than done, because at the same time you want to win games and you're focusing on not getting kind of overawed by the whole thing. But hugely fond memories, obviously.
I've read elsewhere that you said that for the first 70 minutes of that game in the Parc des Princes, you were kind of looking about going, this is amazing, this is the best football experience you've had, really. Obviously we know how that game ended, so was that quite difficult in terms of mindset, from reconciling two such extremes in one? I mean, it's the old cliche, football's a funny old game, isn't it? But it really was difficult to watch you guys after giving so much and being so amazing for that time.
Yeah, do you know what? It was a tough one to take. I'm usually quite good at kind of separating football and, when a game's over, that's it, done for me. And I can move on, and I'm always like, oh, the next game, focus on the training for that, etc. But with the World Cup, I actually did find it quite difficult, just because, like you say, up until the 70th minute, I was on such a high. The whole team, maybe too much of a high, and we kind of lost sight of our job. I know me and Claire Emsley, who was playing in the game as well, we're good friends, and we talk about that game and just like what we could have done, and maybe we're getting a little bit carried away and things like that. And yeah, to then lose the game in such dramatic fashion, it did take a little bit of time. I remember flying home from a few days later, and the World Cup was obviously ongoing, and I just couldn't watch any of it. I actually got home and watched that night. I got back to my parents' home in Scotland, watched the last 12 minutes or 50 minutes, because I had to just get it out of my system and see what it looked like on TV and what actually happened. And then after that, I couldn't watch any of the World Cup for, I mean, it was like a week or so. It wasn't a hugely long time, but I just had to switch off, and I watched bits after. Because it was a really good World Cup, and I wanted to see, the teams and who obviously came out on top. But it was a hard one, I think, being so close, and we thought we were actually going to do it. And I've never played in a game where it's literally turned on its head so much, and just the emotion of
and
it all.
so unjust as well. You won't say it, but we'll say it. We had a 10-year-old girl who went to bed in tears, thinking, "Oh my goodness, what's going?" I said, I'm afraid this is football, Beckett. But just what you were describing there with getting it out your system, it's such an interesting thing, because, as you know, at Alba Matter we cover growth mindset, and the idea about that is that there's always a positive destination. There's always a next place to fix your mind upon. I've heard Scott McTominay talking about the men's team in press conferences, saying, all our goals are ahead of us now. Everything's ahead of us that we want to achieve. And that very much strikes me, and I'm sure the listeners, as is what you feel, both in terms of Scotland and Man City. And certainly those of us who watch and attend the Scotland Women National Team games, anyone who was there at the Cyprus game will know that you guys mean business this time around. How has the team, do you think, grown and bounced back from the World Cup and from that half? How have you got it out your system?
Well, yeah, I think what's great about football is like you say, you've always got kind of goals to look forward to. And for me, at the end of the World Cup, that was that season done. You know, I was off on holiday for 3 weeks, and that was it. And you just kind of draw a line under it. And before you know it, you're back in pre-season. So that is obviously a positive. And it's the same with Scotland. You know, that was that campaign done. We got to the World Cup. Yes, we wanted to get out of the group, but it didn't happen. So then it's on to the qualifying campaign, and it wasn't that long actually after we had the Cyprus game. So straight away, you've just got to kind of learn from it and move forward. And I think the real test was to see how we cope in the qualifying campaign, which is obviously paused at the moment, and how we kind of get through this moment and play those remaining games. But the squad's in a good place. We have we're all, you know, a lot of us are playing at big clubs professionally. We're all at quite good ages. You know, we've got the experience. We've got the mid-rangers, which I find myself in.
Is that right? If you graduated to a mid-ranger now, is that how you're
Yeah, I think I probably am now. We usually do young v old, and I don't know if I'm going to scrape into young team still. I don't know, hopefully. But yeah, so...
Who wins those games out of interest? Who wins those games?
It's always the old ones.
Is it really, right?
Yeah, it's the same. Scotland City, on paper you think, oh, the young ones, we've got a good team, we've got all those energy, but I don't know, the young ones always, the old ones, sorry, always come out on top. So I don't know, a lot can be said for that, I'm sure. But yeah, so the squad is in a good place, and we're determined that the Argentina game, we've got to take positives from it and make sure we don't find ourselves in a similar situation. I think long term, these things, if you keep working, come back around and you progress from them and be successful. So of course the Euros, that's our next goal for now.
Fantastic. So just closing up, Caroline, we'd kind of asked you to bring along 3 things that matter to you in keeping with the whole Alba Matter theme. What are the 3 most important things to you as a footballer, as a human? What helps you with your mindset?
So I've got a picture of my family. Yeah, that's obviously a huge thing. Without them, you know, I wouldn't be in the position I'm at. I love going home to Scotland and seeing them, and they're so supportive and come to games and things like that. So they're my number one thing that matters to me most, which I'm sure is a bit of an obvious one, but it's true. And I owe them all a lot because they sacrificed a lot when we were all growing up and I had to go to football and things like that. So yeah, they're obviously number one.
Do your mum and dad still get down to games? Do they come and see you often? Or I read elsewhere that you're talking less about football to your dad, just to talk about different things.
Well, it's weird, the transition of kind of playing at Hibs and then going on to play professionally. And as much as I love football and it is my life most of the time, it is also a more of a job, and it's just it's a different kind of dynamic. And people love asking me about football and things, and I'm happy to talk about it. But you know, when it's family and I'm away from football, I kind of just like to not talk about it for a little bit, and they get that. But it's hard because my dad and my sister, they love the football chat, so they're always kind of keen to ask what's going on and things. So yeah, there is definitely a balance to be had.
See, I thought the Kardashians might have made it in there, but
well, that would be my chosen topic if I could when I go home. I love them.
Do you know, you should have let me know that before all of this. Just chatted a bit. I would have needed to research doubly as hard. So just in closing then, Caroline, I didn't want to embarrass you too much by statistics, but I'm going to, just for a little while, if that's okay. Over the last couple of seasons at Man City, with the World Cup in the middle, you seem to have, as you said, you've changed your game. You've been playing a bit deeper this year. But in terms of the key attributes that a player in your position needs, your key passes, first last season, second this season, expected assists, first last season, 8th this season, shot creation chances, goal creation chances, again, you're in the top 10 both seasons. Assists, you're in the top 10 both seasons. Touches, being on the ball, you're in the top 10 too. You have a lot to your game already. What are the ways that you're looking to to grow and develop with Man City and Scotland in your game? I saw you've been working with Lucy Bronze, for example, while the rest of us are finding it hard to get out and about. You guys are there training. So what specific things are you looking at?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of continuing on. I think coming back from this periods of off time is going to be a challenge in itself, get back to those kind of levels, fitness levels. But I'm fortunate to be in a place where I'm playing with some of the best players in Europe and have access to the best facilities and staff and things like that. So yeah, it's kind of up to me to make those improvements and find the 1%. So yeah, it's just building on what's kind of being done before, and consistency. I think the key is consistency, because if you can get that in your game, that in itself, consistency at a certain level is what I strive for. And I'm not obviously at that level. I want to keep pushing that level and challenging it. So I think as well at City, where it's very competitive, they can, it's a top club that can kind of sign players, big players. So you're constantly kept on your toes, and that's what I enjoy and what I kind of embrace. So yeah, it's just about doing that and working hard.
Well, Caroline, thank you so much for spending time with us. We really, really appreciate it. And please give my love to your family.
Yeah, will do. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Take care.
Alba Matter, expounding the virtues of Scottish footballing talent.